questions that our students would be asking when they're interviewing somebody for the first time. And then those questions can always lead to more coming from the perspective of folks that are looking into their future careers for the first time. So on that note, Gabby, I believe you have some questions. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are about hearing a story like Ray's and what that looks like thinking about your own career.
For sure. Thank you, Katie. And Ray, it was very great hearing your story. I have a couple questions for you.
Sure. Thank you, Gabby.
Of course. My first question for you is, how did you deal with discrimination?
So, I wish did was the right word. I think do is the right word because it's still out there. And I don't say that to pick on you, I just say it to make the point that I wish there was no more, but there is. And there's still a good amount. For me, and you know, I have heard both sides of the argument. I sort of deal with discrimination first by trying to step back and say, okay, why is it happening and how can I educate the person that is discriminating? And I think, you know, we're sort of a niche population in many ways. And I think a lot of some discrimination, I shouldn't say a lot, but at least some discrimination comes from not being informed. And so, you know, as long as people are respectful and it's not just horrendous discrimination, I'll really try and say, let me explain, you know, and start from there. When it continues, at some point, it's just, I will tend to move on. I'm not, despite the fact that I am a lawyer and was a litigator, I have never sued anybody. And I think for me, and I don't say it works for everybody at all, and there are certainly times when people need to be sued, but I just tend to, if the education doesn't work, I sort of feel like I'm not going to succeed, so it's time to move on. I mean, I suspect, as many of you know, because I think some of this is preaching to the choir out there, you know, it's like the issue of disclosure, right? And I've heard both arguments for a long time of disclosure, you won't get the interview. But on the other hand, if you disclose and they don't want to interview, is it really a place you want to work? I don't know the answer to that. So that's my way of kind of trying to deal with it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The next question, you know, for someone like myself who's recently graduated from college, what is some career advice you would give to people that are sort of starting their career journey?
So, a couple things I would say. One is at least have some sense of a plan of where you'd like to go. I think it really helps you kind of focus where you're looking at things like that. And the other side of that is know that you won't follow your plan. Stuff is gonna happen. Things change. I got my second job in Central Maine Power Company because the guy who had accepted the job actually backed out the day he was supposed to start. So my entire life would have been different if this guy had taken that job. And you know, I look at that and say, yeah, have a plan, but know that stuff is going to happen and put yourself out there. That's kind of, I think, a big part of it. And the other part I would say, and it's where I can look back and say, I know I made a mistake, is really to have mentors both in the blindness community and in whatever community you're trying to work in, who can help you navigate all of the stuff you're going to deal with. And I, you know, as I've said to many people over this last 3 or 4 days being part of the Blind Leaders Program, this is the first blindness convention I've ever been to. And I think looking back, I did it, but I think there's lots I missed in terms of things I could have learned or complaints I could have made to somebody else that understood the stuff I was going through.
So throughout your career, what were some of the challenges you were faced with, both whether that's in discrimination or through access in the workplace?
So, as I said, access has been fascinating. I mean, you know, I always joke with people I couldn't read a newspaper till I was 48 years old. And that's because they put the newspaper online finally. that's just, technology has been just an amazing game changer in terms of access. And, having gone through the idea-a-thon exercise this morning, it sure ain't perfect, but it's a lot better than it was. And so that has been a significant part for me. And discrimination, I'm not sure I have much to add to what I just said. I mean, I've been very fortunate in a sense, despite discrimination in lots of different places in lots of different ways. I managed to get through it all in kind of the way I talked about.
So, moving forward, what are some of the things that you sort of envision the blind community's role being when it comes to inclusion in the workplace?
As I said, oh, that microphone just died. That's interesting. No, I don't have a mic. That's okay. I can do this without a mic. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Clap once if you can hear me. Jessica always wanted to do that too, so I couldn't help myself. Here and came back. But I got to have fun. Now could you repeat the question since I totally distracted myself?
For sure, don't worry about it. Moving forward, what do you envision the blind community's role being when it comes to employment in the workplace?
And I think, kidding aside, it's a lot of the stuff we're talking about here. It's how do you educate people? How do you make things accessible? How do you really, and I hope by being out there, I have at least shown that blind people can succeed. The more role models are out there, the more mentors there are out there, I think the better off we'll all be.
Sorry. Did you have another? No, I was just gonna say thank you, Ray, for answering my questions. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So this is a pretty good example of the type of relationships that we're fostering through the Tradeswin team. We've got students that are coming in, with some ideas of what they may want to do sometimes, not always, but they have a chance to interview folks that are doing all different types of things. We've had artists, we've had writers, teachers, architects, scientists, all over the map, really. So, the main takeaway for our students being that if it's a career that they'd like to do, and if it's something that they're passionate for, there's no end in sight.
So to that end, a call to action would be, A, share this resource, let people know about it. B, if you want to be involved in this